Hello everyone and welcome back. So in our basics of configuration series, we've covered a couple of things, right? So we've done the introduction and we've seen all the categories of configurations that we can have, and then we've also done the administrative configurations, right? Next, we're going to be taking a look at what we call interface configurations. Like we explained last time, the interface configurations are configurations that can be done specifically on an interface, right? These configurations can affect a lot of things. They can affect how you access that interface. They can affect the speed on that interface. They can affect what kind of traffic is transmitted on that interface. So there are a couple of things that interface configurations can help you achieve. So the individual things that we'll be configuring today include the interface name and description. That is, for some devices, take both. And then we're also going to be configuring IP addresses on the interfaces. We're going to be configuring the shutdown state. We're going to be configuring the speed and or duplex, yeah. And then we're going to be configuring speed and duplex. We're going to be configuring interface modes, be it access, trunk, or trunk mode. We're going to be configuring grouping for the interface, that is to determine what kind of group the interface would function as, VLAN, bridge, or SD-WAN, right? Then we're going to be configuring allowed services. So note that all these configurations are not able to be done on all devices. Some devices have specific ways their interfaces are configured, but you'd see that the configurations are very similar and that they are not so different, right? So the devices I'm going to be making use of today, number one is we're going to do the configuration first on my FortiGate 600C. It's an end-life device, but it works, right? So I use them for my tutorials and videos. So we're going to be doing it first on this device, and then we're going to be working on my, just give me a minute. We're going to be working on the my Cisco Catalyst switch, right? It's a 3560 V2 series PoE switch. So we're going to be doing the same configurations on this switch. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Great. Now I'm in my GUI for my FortiGate device, so I'm going to enter my password and we will get started. Now this device is reset to default, so you wouldn't be seeing much configuration on this device. So nothing much has been done on this device, and for some reason the management port is quite laggy, so bear with me while we go through this tutorial because the management port takes a little bit time to process. So let's take a look at what we have here. If we go to the network, we'll see that the only thing that has been configured here is management, right? So as you can see, we have port 1 configured as this, and then the management port configured as 2.99, and then a class C subnet. So yeah, that's basically what has been done on the device. So we're going to take a look at what we're going to be configuring today. First one is interface name, right? So to configure an interfaces are usually found in network. So navigate to your network, and in most devices it will be named network, or you will see a location where it's called interfaces in most devices that use GUI, right? So get into your interface, and it's going to give you a list of all existing interfaces, like a complete list of all existing interfaces. So these are all the interfaces currently on my FortiGate device. Now if I wanted to, let's go into the management port that has been configured already. So if we go in here, so I told you my FortiGate is quite laggy, so just bear with me while we get this done. Now if we take a look at the configuration that has been done here already, we'll see that the role of this interface being management 1 is LAN, right? So it's a LAN interface. So if we wanted to give it a name, we'll see that it has a default name of management 1, and this is the MAC address of this interface. it's this way because this is the hard-coded, name. It cannot be changed. So this is the hard-coded name that comes along with the device, but you can give it an alias which serves as a name. So I can go ahead and say mgmt-1, right? So management 1. So it would be called management 1 by the time we get back to the other screen. And then you already see that the link status is up. You see the type of the interface is a physical interface, right? Because there are virtual interfaces as well. Now you have the row being LAN, and yeah, you have some other information here, right, that we can configure. Now description of the interface. Let's see if there's a description. For description, well, we have a comment here which you can put in some. Now on some devices you might be able to put in some comment, or you would see description, interface description boldly stated there for you to put in the description for the interface that you're working on, right? So for this one, you can put in your description here as comments, and then we've already taken a look at giving the interface a name. So that's about that. Now the next one is IP address, right? So you can also use the interfaces section of the navigation to give an IP address to that interface, right? So you can see that you can give an IP address by stating the IP address, adding a slash, and then putting in the subnet mask, right? So this is what you would get, or 192.168.2.99, and then you put in the subnet mask. For shutdown state, we already see that interface state is enabled. You can change that to disabled, you can change it to enabled here, right? So you can do all of those here. That's for shutdown states. Now we see that we have duplex and speed. Let's see if there's a duplex setting. I doubt there will be a duplex setting on this one. We can find that on our Cisco device, but I doubt there will be a duplex setting on this one. If I do find that out, I'll let you know, but there shouldn't be a duplex setting on this one. So next one is interface modes, access or trunk. We're going to take a look at that on the Cisco device. And then we have grouping and allowed services. Now let's take a look at allowed services. You see where we have restrict access, right? So restrict access would help you define what services it is that you want to allow on your device. Now on this one, you see that we have HTTPS is allowed by default. We have ping, meaning that you can ping the interface. You can turn this on or off. We have HTTP, meaning that you can use the unsecure or non-secure version of HTTP to access this device as well. You can turn it on or off as well, and you can see that HTTPS is kept on by default. Now we have FMG access, which is FortiManager. If you have multiple FortiGate devices in your infrastructure, you can connect them to a FortiManager, which would help you manage those devices centrally. So you can manage all your FortiGate devices through your FortiManager. So we've taken a look at interface name, description, IP address, shutdown state, duplex and speed. We've covered interface modes. We'll take a look at that one on the switch, and then we need to look at the grouping of interfaces, and we've already done allowed services. So let's take a look at grouping of interfaces. So basically, the purpose of grouping interfaces on a firewall helps you to simplify your firewall policies, right? So that your security can be much more simplified, right? Instead of addressing specific IP addresses or interfaces, you can create, let's say, VLANs or zones, so that you can simplify your firewall policies. So typically what you need to do is to create a a VLAN. So you can do that by going to your interfaces and creating new and then clicking on interfaces, right? Okay, next you see the options you have here, right? So we're going to name the interface like we want, and then we're going to leave the type as VLAN, right? And interface as let's give it let's say port 2, right? And then let's say VLAN ID is VLAN let's say VLAN 10. Let's say row is obviously LAN, and then we're going to leave it as manual, right? Manual will leave the IP address blank, and then we'll go to DHCP and enable the DHCP server. We'll say create new starting IP, let's say 192.168.100.2, and end IP, let's say we want it to end at, yeah, let's say we want it to end at .50, right? Let's say this is the first one, and let's say the interface name would be obviously VLAN LAN 10, right? So we got this one done. We got this one set up, right? So by the time we come back to the previous interface, you will see that this interface has been created. So yeah, we have it here, VLAN 10, right? So we have it in some other FortiGate devices, it's going to create a different section and put it down there. So that's why I was looking for it down there. So we have in VLAN 10. Let's create a second one and say, so yeah, we have all of this set up. No, we have this set up. We'll put the VLAN 10 and make it 11, and then we'll go to LAN is the row, the VLAN ID is 11, management interface, and so this is actually wrong. It wasn't supposed to be here, so let's leave it on port 2, and then we'll go to DHCP server, create new, and then we'll go to WinV. I'll paste in the, and then we'll paste it in here as well, which is correct. And then I think that's it. So when we head back to interfaces, we should be able to see that we have two VLANs right here, right? So we can group these two VLANs or even group the interfaces by creating a new zone, right? And then we'll say the zone name is LAN. We'll say the zone name is, let's say, customer, let's say quality, let's say QA, right? Quality assurance or quality whatever. Then we'll put the interface that it will be going out on as the VLAN 11, and we have the VLAN 10 as well, right? The members of this QA zone, right? And we'll click OK. Now we have a zone. Yeah, it's created that here, right? Zone 5 having VLAN 10 and VLAN 11, and then we can create firewall policies that impact these zones, firewall policies that either its source or its destinations are towards these zones, right? So we can do all of that by going to policy and object, and then so we can create firewall policies using the new zones that we've created and define how we want traffic to be transmitted or to those zones, right? So we'll give it a name, and then the incoming interface, we can say that the incoming interface could be, let's say for instance port 1 is our incoming interface, right? And then the outgoing interface, we can make that to be our what did we name the zone again? Let's see, QA, right? our QA zone is our outgoing interface, and then the source, we can select the source of traffic that we want. We could say we could use all for now, right? And then destination address, right? And then we'll schedule and add, if we want to add a schedule, if we want to add a type of service that we are looking at, allowing, and then we'll say accept, right? And that would define if we want this kind of traffic to be allowed to those locations on our network or those areas on our network. Then we can add firewall policies and security profiles and all of that. So that's basically how you do your grouping on. There are so many other type of groupings that you can add on your FortiGate device, right? Or on any network device. You can group as an SD-WAN, you can group as a bridge, you can group as VLANs. So there are multiple ways that you can group, but you have to define the purpose of grouping those interfaces and know how you need to achieve that. So next we'll be moving on to the Cisco device to see how we can achieve some of these tasks on our switch. Okay, I've got my Cisco switch up and running, and yeah, we'll get into it and see how we can do the configurations we need to do. Now the first thing that we are looking at here is the interface name and description, right? How to configure the interface name and description. So if we log into the switch and you've typed in enable, we'll go to the configuration mode, right? So we're in the configuration mode and we need to configure interface name. So for interface name, we'll have to get into the interfaces first, right? So let's say, for instance, we go into interface fast Ethernet 0/1, right? So we are in interface 0/1 and we need to configure the description. So description, we'll say, let's say this is a uplink, right? Let's say uplink to core switch, right? Let's say this is the interface that provides the uplink. Then we click on that. We would say okay, that's the description of the interface. Now the next thing we're going to be configuring is shutdown state, right? We can determine if the port is shut down or not, right? So we can do shutdown or no shutdown, right? No shutdown. So that works. Next thing we're going to be taking a look at is the duplex, right? So we're going to configure duplex and we'll say full, right? So full duplex is what we're going to be configuring on this one. Next configuration we're going to be looking at is what speed. We need to configure speed. Now for the speed, if we were configuring speed, so the thing with configuring speed and duplex is you have to ensure that the speed and the duplex, that they are both the same on both sides of the interface, right? On both sides of the on both sides of the switches. So if you had one switch down and one switch up, right? Switch A and switch B. If duplex was full on one, you need to configure full duplex on the other one, unless there'll be flapping of interface, right? And the network will be flapping and it won't be stable. Now the next thing we're going to be looking at is interface mode, right? To configure interface mode, which determines if the switch is going to that port is going to function as a trunk, access, trunk, or whatever, right? So we can exit and do yeah, we were already on interface fast Ethernet 0/1, right? We can then go to switch port mode, right? And then access. So this would leave the switch port as an access port, right? Which by default Cisco switches come as access ports, right? Or you can change it to a trunk port. Switch port mode trunk, then we do encapsulation, I think switch port trunk, yeah, and then we have encapsulation .1q, and that should change that interface to a trunking interface. Now what's the next thing we need to configure? We've configured duplex, we've configured interface modes, we need to configure grouping into VLANs, right? So to group into VLANs, what we need to do is usually first create the VLANs. On some Cisco iOS, if you add this switch port to a VLAN without creating a VLAN, it creates it for you. But let's just see how to create a VLAN, right? If we go to if we now go to conf t, right, and then we do VLAN 10, right, and name is customer service, and then we do VLAN 20, and the name is QA, and then we do VLAN 30, and the name is HR. So we have those VLAN set up, right? If we now navigate to the interface, let's go back to interface FA0/1, right? And then we go into we want to add it to, let's say we want to add interface 0/1 to VLAN 10, so we can do switch ports access. Let's change it back to access port, right? Switch port mode access, right? And then we'll move it into VLAN 1, switch port access VLAN 10, rather. We'll move it to VLAN 10, right? Switch port access, now it's in VLAN 10. Now if we go to show run, if we do a show run to see what commands that we've been running so far, right, let's print everything and ensure it's all showing. Okay, now if we go all the way up and go to where it started, we'll see that we have interface 0/1. The description is uplink to core switch. We have the switch port access is accessing VLAN 10, and then we have the trunk encapsulation still there. We need to remove that, and then we have switch port mode access, and then we have it's not negotiating, and then the speed which we've set, and then the duplex that we set, right? So we've achieved most of the commands that we've set out to achieve on the switch. Now if we wanted to allow the last thing that we need to configure, which is HTTP, HTTPS and all of that, we would need to probably create access lists that would either allow or deny, you know, those kind of traffic onto this part of our network or not. But we're not going to be doing that here, so we're going to be stopping at grouping of links, because to allow certain traffic or deny certain traffic, we need to do that from our router, right? So yeah, that's basically it. Alright, so note that you can add multiple switch ports by using the range keyword, right? You can add multiple switch ports to a VLAN by using the range keyword, right? And then you can obviously configure multiple VLANs and also add different, ports to those VLANs, right? So thank you for watching. If there's something specific you would like to see, just let me know in the comments. If these videos help you, please do like, subscribe, consider reposting or sharing the video. And if you'd like to get a one-on-one with me, just reach out to me in the comment section or send me a DM, right? Thank you so much for watching, and see you on the next one.